Now, let's take a look at a different way to increase saturation, in a way that will make the image look very saturated, without actually being oversaturated. Hi, I'm Alex Jordan from Long Color Grading and FilmSimplified.com. In certain film genres, the oversaturated look is becoming really popular. But when you try to mimic this look by increasing saturation, the biggest problem you'll always face is that increasing saturation is not uniform. Certain colors in the image will become oversaturated while other colors are still undersaturated. Let's take a look at a trick that will allow you to make your images look very saturated without actually being so. Before we start, a quick reminder, today is the last day in our holiday sale for this year, where you can get an 85% discount on our Ultimate Resolve bundle. So it includes the courses with a lot of gifts, like the practice footage library with more than 500 clips and the new title pack. You basically get 85% on our biggest bundle. So let's take a look at this image. Notice the colors. I'll simply hit the auto color to auto balance the image, and I'll add a new note. Now let's increase saturation. The easiest way to increase saturation is by simply using the saturation controller. So I will increase saturation, and notice that in order to increase the colors to the level we want, we had to oversaturate the red parts in the image. Let's reset the saturation, and this time let's use the color boost control instead of saturation. I'll increase it, and notice that for the most part we still have the same problem. It's slightly better, but not there yet. The areas in the back here are not really saturated, the red areas are very saturated, and the colors don't look very natural here. So this is not what we want. We can also increase the saturation of certain colors using the hue versus saturation curve, but we would be increasing the saturation of all the parts in the image that contains this color, regardless of how saturated these colors are. In simpler terms, I do not want to increase the saturation of all the red parts in the image. I just want to increase the saturation of the red parts that are undersaturated. So the hue versus saturation curve in this particular case will not get us to the result we want. Then we have the saturation versus saturation curve, which using this controller to the left allows us to increase the saturation of the undersaturated parts of the image. This might seem like the best option, but let's try it. Still, the sky in the background is still not very saturated, while the red areas are still oversaturated. Now, let's take a look at a different way to increase saturation, in a way that will make the image look very saturated, without actually being oversaturated. It's simply the color warper effect. I just clicked here in order to open the color warper. We are not going to be explaining the color warper in depth in this video. I already created a video explaining the color warper last year, but in simple terms, notice that we have some dots near the center of the web and some dots that are far from the center. The ones that are close to the center controls the parts of the image that are undersaturated. So in order to make the image look oversaturated, all we need to do is that in each line of points, grab the point that is the closest to the middle point of the web and drag it towards the edge of the web on the same line. So let's drag this one here, let's drag the red one, this one, and all of them. Let's increase the saturation a bit more by pushing them even further. Take a look at this image now. This method allowed me to compress the saturation of each color. And if I needed to reduce the saturation of a particular color, like this red here for example, I can simply click and drag to select all the dots that represents this color and simply move them a bit closer to the center. Notice that the image now looks very saturated, while the actual saturation level is still under control. For example, we have this blue part here, so I'm going to select the blue dots and move them a bit to the left. And now, even though no part is really oversaturated in this image, the image still look artificially oversaturated. Take a look at the saturation level in the sky, the saturation even of all the colors here, while still not really being oversaturated. We were able to achieve this because we compressed the saturation variations of each color. So before this change, for example, the color red, there were many parts that are red in the image with different saturation level. And what we did now is that we compressed the saturation of red. So we reduced the saturation variations tones of red in this image. Just think of it that way. So I'll grab a still, delete this node, increase saturation in the conventional way, and take a look at the two results side by side. In the new method to the right, we managed to increase saturation more uniformly across the entire image, and it looks a bit fake, frankly, but this look is becoming more popular versus simply increasing saturation using the saturation controller. So I know this was a lot of talk regarding saturation, but try this method for yourself and see how great the results it produces. So I hope you like this. If you like it, please visit us at filmsimplified.com, where you can join our free DaVinci Resolve crash course that is designed for the absolute beginner and will take you through every tab in Resolve. Thank you.
filmsimplified.com